I just goes through, it's on my left side, it's my weaker side, but I always know heading the ball, you hit it down low. Cross is coming, I've just kept it down low, down to the ground, back of the net, run past the goal. It's punching the air. Even as I tell you the story, I'm almost got tears in my eyes.
This is the story of how a kid from Rongotai College in Wellington, New Zealand, Aotearoa, grew up in a rugby-obsessed country and went on to conquer the heights of European football and stamp his name as the greatest footballing talent this country has ever seen. This is Wynton Rufer, Indigenous 100.
Tuatahira e te rangatira, tēnā koe. Tēnā koe ko whakarangatira I tēnei kaupapa Indigenous 100, nō reira nau mai, haere mai. It's not often that I get the privilege of sitting next to the GOAT. 100 years of the biggest sport in the entire world, and the best player this half of the world is sitting right next to me. Nō reira, tēnā koe. Thank you so much for joining us here on Indigenous 100. That's one point at this point, but there's a whole lot of build-up in order to get to there, and then there's also a whole lot of story to happen after that accolade. So, if it's okay, I'd like to kind of re-jog back. Swiss dad, Māori mum, from Ngāti Porou. I want to ask you a couple of questions, just in regards to your upbringing, but why are Ngāti Porou so good at everything? I mean, I'm a Waikato Tainui, and I'm constantly looking through the whakapapa list of all these amazing athletes. None of them come from where I come from. They all come from the East Coast.
Yeah, mate, I'm pretty sure it's to do with the fishing, you know, so when growing up in Wellington, we always went around Easter and Christmas time to Waipiro Bay through Tupuia Springs. So it's obviously north of, you know, Tolaka Bay, Tokomaru Bay.
Beautiful places.
Then you come to Tupuia Springs. Also got a good golf course. I'm a member there. And then you go off down to Waipiro Bay. It's about 6 kilometres down to the coast. It is a magic part of New Zealand, and as you said, mum's from there, Ngāti Porou, very proud of that. My older brother Shane was born in Tupuia Springs, and then my sister Donna was born in Gisborne, and then I came along as the youngest, and then by that stage, I think the family had obviously moved to Wellington. Dad was an engineer at Wellington Hospital, and then I was born there, so 1962. But very special days up in the East Coast with the cousins, I tell you what. And then, you know, we either got the clubs out playing golf or down at the beach, surf casting from the beach, monster kawai. So good fun, good days.
It is a beautiful place, not just in this country, but in the world. Love it out on the East Coast. But you're saying, as you're very proud being Ngāti Porou on your mother's side, as you were growing up, you were born in Wellington, was it just holidays, or did you guys still have strong connections to your marae and to your people out on the coast? Yeah,
no, very strong connections, and so any, you know, weddings and funerals, we were always there. And then, but just the family, I just loved the family. As well on my dad's side, I love as well being in Switzerland with the family on dad's side. Totally different. You know, if I turn up, I'll tell you a cool story. So you turn up at 4 o'clock for an afternoon tea in Zurich at my auntie's place. I arrive at 1 minute past 4, and the door opens to my auntie's place. Oh, Wynton, why are you so late? I've been waiting here for you, and you are not on time. And then I've just come from the other side of the world. I'm jet lagged. You know, it's 1 minute past 4. But you have to smile and, you know, but it's like, you gotta be joking. Whereas in, growing up in Wellington, so the door opens at our home in Strathmore by the airport in Wellington. And then my cousins from the East Coast just come inside. They haven't knocked on the door. They just walk in, come in. We're at dinner. They all just come and sit down. One of them goes to the fridge, helps himself. My dad's sitting there absolutely, he's in shock. But and then my brother and I, we loved that culture because we as well would turn up as well on the East Coast. Sometimes we even hitchhiked there. I hitchhiked there once with my brother, and we just turned up my auntie's place, and then, you know, just basically you just sort of turn up. Okay, we knocked on the door, but we just, you know, walk in. And so, you know, two completely different cultures. Yeah. It was, I guess that's why my dad was always a bit moaning and groaning. He could never quite work out the Māori culture, you know, where the Swiss, you got to be on Swiss timing. You know, you got to book in the meeting or the cup of tea with auntie. Whereas on the Māori side, you know, you just sort of turn up and then you come in. And so that was quite cool, because even when I was a player overseas and then in Switzerland, in Europe, in Germany, I took advantage a little bit of that Māori culture and tried to be, you know, I was a bit cheeky. And then, you know, because they can say to me, oh, are they all like that in New Zealand? You know, they're all as crazy as you and then all over the show. And I said, just relax. You can come see my cousins down in New Zealand. I'll take you to the East Coast. We'll go fishing, you know, just chill out. It's all good, you know, so.
Oh, that'd be great to touch on that when we start talking about your career, because I might touch onto the Swiss side of things and the start of football. There's these legendary stories of a 9-year-old kid out of Wellington who could juggle the ball like 500 times. There's legendary stories of this kid that when everybody else is just turning up, just to go and play a game, he's doing professional level warm-ups. There's stories of this kid that post the game, when everybody's off to go and get hot dogs or whatever with their parents, there's this kid that's doing warm downs. Is that the Swiss side of things? And I mean, that's still a fairly modern kind of context in regards to sports science around warming down, preparation of your body, and, you know, warming up in games. We're in the what? This is the 70s. And here's this young kid from the East Coast, rugby town, rugby region, playing in Wellington, rugby place, who's doing these. I'm imagining people will be looking like, what is this guy up to? And you're only like about 30 years ahead of your time. Where did that side of things in regards to how you approach the game at such a young age come from?
Growing up, my idol as a football player or soccer player was Pelé. Edson Arantes do Nascimento, that's his real name, and Brazilian. And he was a magic striker, number 10 shirt. And so he was one of my idols. And the Brazilians and the way they move and sort of dance with the football is incredible. So I tried to copy that type of play. So that meant, you know, juggling the ball. They could all just juggle the ball. The ball sort of stuck to their feet. They had amazing ball control. And I sort of worked it out myself that it just had to do with juggling. And so I was always juggling the ball. And I set myself goals that, you know, like you've just mentioned. So before my 10th birthday, I wanted to make sure I had 500 juggles. So, and I managed it easily. But believe it or not, even just yesterday at the training in my academy at Winners, I'm telling some of the kids exactly that story, because we had one Indian boy who could juggle the ball about 65 times, and he's 8 years old. And that's a lot, you know, for 8 years old, and he's going to be able to make that 500. But the rest of the kids were only getting around about 10 juggles. So it was really quite hard. The weather's hot, it's quite tough. But I was just trying to inspire them, because like 500 juggles, it's like, you know, it's like you're lying.
Yeah.
You're lying. This can't be possible. But even the 8-year-old doing 65 juggles, because every time he picks the ball up, he can do at least about 20, and he just juggles away, both feet, left and right. As I said, he's Indian, Fijian kid, and he's magic, this boy, Imran. And so I was trying to get the other kids to see that inspiration from the little Indian, Fijian kid who can juggle the ball like a Brazilian. And then I got them all together and said, guys, by the time, before my 10th birthday, I could make 500 juggles. But really, the only one I was really inspiring with that story was then Imran, the little Fijian Indian boy, because 65 was really good. He's really proud that he's by far the best juggler with amongst those other kids. But then it was like, wow, 500. But I looked him in the eyes and says, Imran, you're going to do it. Before you are 10 years old, you're going to be able to juggle 500 times. Are you going to be able to do it? And he looked at me, and I could see the belief in his eyes, and he nodded his head, but I could see the belief. And it's all part of that story. And so I saw Pelé, you know, the pictures and him just punching the air in celebration of scoring, you know, some amazing goal. And I created that self-belief and had it in me that I wanted to get there and get to the top. And that was my inspiration. So coming back to your stories about the juggling the ball, warming up before the game, I don't think it was that I was actually doing those professional warm-ups, but I was just always with the ball. So I was doing a natural warm-up then with the ball before the game. After the game, I would have just been probably kicking the ball in the net again or in the goal. I was just always with the ball. So there's this story about these 10,000 hours that you do for training for young athletes, you know, to become a professional. I actually worked it out, and I came to about 6,000 hours, which is still a lot. You know, I don't believe in the 10,000 hours for football players, because I don't think there were many who were playing with the ball more than I was. I was totally crazy in a way, just with the ball and what I did. And, you know, I even we lived in Miramar, and Ellesmere Avenue in Miramar to Rongotai College was probably, I don't know, maybe at least a kilometre, maybe a kilometre and a half. I set a goal when I went to Rongotai College as a third former, and by the end of the year I could juggle the ball without dropping it, and I got through the gates of Rongotai College and I made it. So that's pretty crazy as well. You imagine, I've got to cross some streets, there were the cars, and I never dropped the ball. And the way I did it though, to get across the street, I kick it up and catch it on my neck. Because then you can look left and you can look right, and then I could just walk across when there was, and then I'd flick it back up, and then I could start juggling. Because then I just could see the footpath, and then it worked. And of course I dropped it a few times, but I made it. And my goal was to get from Ellesmere Avenue in Miramar under the airport in Wellington Airport. There's a little tunnel, you can only walk through it or bike through it. So a lot of the lights are broken. So I think as well, I probably there put it on my neck to walk through, because you come to some stages where the lights, there's maybe 20 metres where you can't really see what's going on. So, but I made it. I juggled the ball without dropping the ball. So about a kilometre and a half. So I don't know how many, probably had a couple of thousand juggles in there. But I just set those goals for myself, and it worked. And I was able then to go to a high level to play the game.
That's two things around that. First of all, again, this is in just getting out of the 60s into the 70s. There's no internet or anything like that, you know. There's no Sky or pay-per-view television to watch all the different football games that are happening all around the world. And again, you are living in an area and an era that is absolutely rugby-centric. How did you even come to know who Pele was in order for him to become your inspiration?
No, well, it was quite easy really, because there was already the Shoot magazine that we'd get from England. You had as well Sunday TV, The Big Match. It was probably the only international TV show that we all watched. I bet you if we even had interviews now with the All Blacks from those eras in the 70s, they'll all tell you that they watched The Big Match. Mm-hmm. So there was already a good culture there. And then we know as well, 1960s, 64, Peter Snell winning gold medals. You know, 72 Olympics, the rowing 8 won the gold medal. We had the invincible All Blacks. So New Zealand already had, you know, a massive sporting culture. We always had it. Even when I went to Rongotai College back in, you know, so my brother was there 75, 76, 77, you know, we had this McCavity Shield athletics competition in Wellington with all the top schools. It was just massive tradition with this athletics competition that's still happening today, but we're talking about the 70s. Mm. So we grew up in a real cool sporting culture, and it was easily accessible to see as well the football culture from England, Shoot magazine, The Big Match, and then to find out really who the best players in the world were, which was then Pelé. Because from 58 World Cup, 62 World Cup winner, 66 England win the World Cup, 70 Pelé is then the master, third World Cup winner for Brazil. So there was still enough magazines and information out there to know and read about all this stuff. So it really was, you know, of course the information technology that we have today is absolutely phenomenal compared to back then, but it was still, we had it all really. So it was quite easy to have access to those superstar, you know, the very top level player. And so it was easy for me to be inspired and follow the dream. And even I played in goal. My older brother said, look, you want to come play with us? You got to go in goal. So I had to play in goal. Otherwise, his mates and he wouldn't let me play. And so Gordon Banks was the famous goalkeeper from England. So I used to be, you know, I was either Gordon Banks or I was Pelé. So when I'd play outfield and score goals, I was Pelé. When I was in goal, I was Gordon Banks. So it was good.
Saying easy to be inspired through the access and through those avenues. What about the self-discipline and the self-determination, again, just at that age? How did you manage that? Look, I'm reflecting back, you're juggling the ball 500 times a night. I don't even know if I could count to 500 when I was 9, let alone all these incredible things. Before you even hit the high school, you had Pele there to inspire you. Did you have anybody else there to kind of instill that discipline or that drive to help you along, or was that just purely self-determination?
Look, clearly had influence from my dad from Switzerland.
He was a football fan?
Yeah, he was, yeah. And he came over in 1957 to New Zealand, and he was a really good football player, good skills, could kick well with both feet. We would watch him play with the Swiss team. They'd have, there was a Swiss club in Wellington, and we'd go along and watch him, and it was funny because he was quite lazy. So somehow with us Rufers, we're all a little bit lazy, very good talent, but it was funny because Dad, you know, I could see it with him, but he always scored the best goals, whichever foot. And obviously got that from him, inspiration from him. And then my older brother, who was a phenomenal athlete. He had all the records at McCavity Shield. He represented New Zealand in softball, volleyball and soccer. So he was an incredible athlete, my older brother Shane. So that was another inspiration. But I guess I was probably a bit of a freak, I guess, in a way, for the determination, you know, the goal setting that I sort of did naturally. I wasn't really good at school. I was an average student, you know, sort of one of those students you go to school to eat your lunch, you know, you go to school to have the break and go and play football with your mates. You know, I was that type of student, and but I guess if you're looking specifically at how it is with, you know, the young players that I see today, that I coach and try to inspire, I don't often see what I obviously had in just this incredible self-belief and determination, and was just always with the ball. You don't really see that a lot. It's quite, you know, different environment today, you know, with social media, you know, computer games, everything. It's a different world today for the kids.
I'll fast forward a little bit and we'll come back to this, as I want to talk about that pre-high school era, and then probably just the understanding that, okay, this is going to work, this is going to happen as a football player. When you talk with your buddies from all around the world, and this is the elite of the elite. I know you're elite when I play FIFA, and then there's this Māori dude who's in the all-time world team when I'm trying to rack up my stats and stuff. And then there's Wynton Rufer. He's right next to Pele. I'm lining them both up in front of the field. So is that a kind of a similar thing of the greats, of the best players that you've played with, played against in the world? Is it a similar type of story? I mean, be different circumstances for everyone, but just your guys' self-determination, always with the ball, that set you, this elite group, apart from everybody else?
Well, there has to be something there. So, because you just remind me as well of, you know, when you watch the stories of Pele, and they did this film from the 1958 World Cup around Pele when he was, you know, 15 playing professional football, 16 gets the call up with the national team as sort of one of the squad members, you know, and it's a bit of a freak really, but then he gets to travel then from Brazil to Sweden for the World Cup finals in 1958, and he's a 17-year-old, and they also take him and he's injured. So he didn't play the first group game. So normally today, you don't take any injured players. You know, you've got your squad of 22s, you're not going to take an injured player unless it's maybe Messi, who's 28 or something, but you don't normally take a 17-year-old injured player. And that's still at a time when Brazil football, you know, they lost 1950, they lost the World Cup on home soil against Uruguay. They only had to draw the game to be world champions at home in Rio de Janeiro in front of 200,000 people. They lost the game. They never have forgiven the Uruguayans for that defeat. And then 54, the World Cup, it's in Switzerland, they get hammered. Now it's 58, you know, football is already a massive big deal there, and they're taking this 17-year-old Brazilian who's injured as part of the squad. So, you know, it's again talking about, okay, comparing it sort of with me, and then in a way I guess we all had some sort of X factor that, you know, then enabled us to, you know, to get to that level. And yeah, it's cool because, as I said, with Pele, you know, he was juggling mangoes. So I was juggling soccer balls, he was juggling mangoes. So that's not bad either, you know.
Rongotai College, you go through there. At what point did the career stuff start kicking in, or was that even back at 9? Obviously you wanted to become, you know, to play football.
It was right from, you know, as you say, 10 years of age. I was just so focused on wanting to become a professional football player, or just going overseas, you know, go to England, the big match. All I wanted to do was to be on the field. You know, when I was watching the Sunday big match, it's a full stadium, there's a great atmosphere. I just wanted to be on the field, and I just could, I just, you know, imagine myself being on the field and smashing the ball in the top corner of the goal and just running around just doing Pele jumps. I I lived that out in my mind and could see it happening, and then I made it happen. So yeah, it was cool.
1982 is a big year for you. That is a year that will always be in sporting folklore here in New Zealand. You guys make the World Cup, and you're what, 20 at that time?
Well, my journey was happening then, you know, like the year before, where I'd got this opportunity to go to Norwich City for trials with my older brother Shane, and I was in a non-travelling squad of the New Zealand team, so I guess number 23 to number 26, and I was one of those players. But I was trying to then, you know, realise my dream of becoming a professional football player after 1 month at Norwich City, which is now, and then this is cool because about September 21st we get to England, and then on October 23rd, 1 month later, Norwich City offer me a professional contract. And this is in 1981, and at exactly the same time, the New Zealand team is playing those games against Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, China. I wasn't yet part of the squad. I was trying to get my work permit at Norwich City. I'd been offered a professional contract. So as I said, October 23rd, Pele's birthday was the day they offered me the contract. That was pretty cool. This is October 23rd. New Zealand's trying to qualify in that final group of 4 with China, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, New Zealand. 2 of the 4 will go to the World Cup. They then, you know, they drew away to China. They won at home against China. Then they lost to Kuwait at home. And then they drew against Saudi Arabia at home. So now they had the last 2 games away. And it was early December that these 2 games will be happening in Kuwait and in Saudi Arabia. And John Adshead's now got a trouble, he needs to win the games. And for some crazy reason, him and John Adshead and Kevin Fallon, they ring Ken Brown, the manager at Norwich City, and he gives a really good rapport about me. I was training with the first team. I couldn't play any games yet because my work permit hadn't come through. But I was just doing the magic, and I played in a friendly game against Fort Lauderdale strikers from the USA. Gerd Muller was in the team. So I was right up there. If I'd have been, you know, had my work permit, I'd have probably been playing in the first team. And I was 18 years of age. So it was sort of happening for me, but not happening. Get the phone call, get on the flight have to go down from Norwich, stay with a Kiwi chick in London, wake up in the morning to catch my flight from London to Bahrain, and see snow was falling in London. It was the first time I saw snow. And I'm going to go and play for New Zealand and turn up in Bahrain, meet with the New Zealand team for sort of the first time, because I'd been involved. They'd been together for more than a year, playing all these games. And then we play against, first of all, Kuwait, and we're losing 1-0, massive crowd, full up. Kuwait are going to go through as the top in the group. Second half, Steve Sumner cracks in a brilliant free kick. I then follow up with a nice left foot shot on the turn, 2-1 up. And then in the dying moments, Kuwait equalise. So we think the dream's over. I'm happy as Larry because I've scored a goal. Brilliant crowd. But the team's really upset because they think it's all over. And then we have the 3-4 days later, the next game in Saudi Arabia, and we have to win by 6-0. Well, we're leading 5-0 at half time. I've scored 2 of the goals. It's crazy stuff. We got the second half. We're playing on AstroTurf, and if we just score 1 more goal, we go through to the World Cup. But we can't score. Heaps of chances. So now we finished the game and we're all a bit confused because, you know, we were meant to sort of win both games, but now we've drawn one and won one 5-0, and then it sort of worked out that, well, we've got the same goal difference and everything with China. Same points, same goal difference. So FIFA say they even postpone the draw for the World Cup because of this one game that still has to be played. So I get to go home to New Zealand with the team, and we prepare for the game on January the 10th, where now I've turned 19, December 29th I've turned 19, and we prepare for this game in Singapore. So much for neutral country, because it's, you know, there's 58,000 Chinese in the stadium, and Singapore Chinese, and then we got probably 2,000 army guys from the Singapore base, and we played this playoff game against Singapore, and of course we win 2-1. I scored the second goal, and we get to the World Cup. So it was just clearly a special moment for New Zealand. Captured the whole country. I then the team went back to New Zealand to a hero's welcome. I was the only one went back to London. It was funny thing is actually I get off the plane, and they got the Fleet Street Press, you know, the Daily Mails, the Daily Suns, whatever they're called. And on the back page is always the football stories, and they often have the picture of, you know, the big, you know, George Best with his wife, you know, at Heathrow Airport. And then because all these flashing cameras as I've come off the plane and come through immigration, all these flashing cameras, and I'm looking around and oh, there must be someone famous in that. And then the next day in Norwich, all the boys are showing me the newspapers, and I was on every newspaper because I was this, you know, New Zealand hero. This is why the World Cup has been delayed, the draw, because Wynton Rufer, the hero, scored the goal for New Zealand to get to the World Cup. And so it was quite cool. I actually made the headlines of the paper and that in England, and then of course the rest is history.
And then this is pre-World Cup as well. But was that the point where you'd fought your way and you'd work your way to becoming a professional football player with Norwich, and, you know, things didn't quite work out with the work permit there, but that qualifying process and then onto the World Cup, was that when the entire world, well, this kid's got something, you know, we want a piece of him?
Yeah, well, it was all happening. It really was happening, and I was trying to get my work permit at Norwich, got called back to New Zealand. We had friendly games in New Zealand against Ireland, against Hungary, you know, Watford with, you know, Elton John, and so there was, you know, amazing things happening around the team, preparing for the World Cup. I got these incredible offers to go and play in Switzerland, so yeah, it was, I mean, it was just, the whole thing was happening, you know, living the dream, and it just, you know, continued. And then I ended up signing in Switzerland. I played in my first year in FC Zürich and got to play in the quarterfinals of the UEFA Cup. So, you know, all the players who go to play in Europe, it's the dream to play in Europe. That means that you're playing in the top club teams within your league, and then you play in this European club football against all the other European clubs. So I got to play in the first few months of being at FC Zürich. We got through first round Cyprus, second round we were the underdogs against Ferencváros from Budapest, Hungary, who were a top European club side with a big tradition. They were the favourites against us. We got through. I got on the field in both of those games, came on as a sub. And then we're in the quarterfinals against Benfica from Portugal. So this was unbelievable. It was now the biggest crowd I ever played against in my life, 95,000 at the Stadium of Light in Portugal. But the first thing was that we played at home in front of 32,000. It was the first time as well I played in this at Zurich at the Letzigrund, which is, it's a world famous stadium because of the athletics competition that they have every year in the Golden Four, or what are they, the Diamond Meeting.
Yeah.
And Zurich's always been world famous because of the Olympic or the world records, because then my first trip overseas as a kid at 16 got to see at the Letzigrund Stadium in Zurich, Sebastian Coe break the world record in the 1500. So, and now I get to play in that stadium as my home stadium as a football player was a real buzz. And I met John Walker in the very first year that I played at FC Zürich, because he's at the meeting, because all the world famous athletes are there at the meetings, and then they, you know, and the press make a big deal about that one as well. But it's all part of that sort of hype and things. And now we're playing the quarter-final at the Letzigrund in Zurich in front of 32,000, of which the half of the stadium was filled with Portuguese. So it was like an away game. It was incredible, and really tight game, and it's 0-0. Could go either way. Really tight game. We're having the best game that we've sort of ever played. I'm still a sub with the first team because I've only been there 3 months, trying to find my way into the first team. I'm only 19. Come on as a sub with 20 minutes to go against Benfica, and then with 10 minutes to go, this guy Ernie Mason, he crosses the ball, diagonal cross. I just goes through 2 defenders. They're all ball watching. It's a long diagonal cross. I just goes through. It's on my left side. It's my weaker side, but I always know hitting the ball, you hit it down low. You keep it low if you can. So hit the ball down, because Pele would do it. Jump up, crash the ball with his head, down low. Okay, Gordon Banks got there and saved that miracle save in 1970 at the World Cup against England. But otherwise, you head the ball low, cross is coming. I've just kept it down low, down to the ground, back of the net, run past the goal. It's punching the air. Even as I tell you the story, I'm almost got tears in my eyes, because it's just incredible passion, and as I think of it, it was amazing. And wow, it's amazing how just thinking of those moments.
That's what you said not more than 10, 15 minutes ago, your dream as a 10-year-old was to be on that stadium, you know, to hit the goal, the ball in the back of the net, and just to see that crowd erupt. You're living your dream, and this is at the beginning part of your professional career.
Yeah, no, that's it, because that was basically then. I don't know why I'm so emotional, but it's amazing, because I've done 1,000 interviews, but I don't normally get upset. But it's a good thing. It's a good story, and just reliving that moment.
Well, it's incredible here to sit next to you to see still how passionate you are about these memories.
Which 57. I was 19.
You must be at the absolute top of the world at that stage. There's a 19-year-old kid from the coast, grew up in Wellington, doing what you've always dreamed of.
Because I did as well. When I jumped to celebrate, I did a Pele jump, because that's exactly what I'd imagined.
Going back through all the things that we're still about to talk to your career, obviously very emotional about that. Is that must be one of the real special moments?
Yeah, it was my first goal in Europe, and it was against Benfica in the quarter-final of the UEFA Cup. So it was a pretty good moment.
Yeah.
32,000 in the stadium. Unfortunately, they equalised in the 92nd minute. So 2 weeks later, we went to Portugal for the return game and we got smashed 4-0. But 95,000, Benfica went on to lose the final against Anderlecht. But it was, you know, for me personally, it was obviously very, as you saw, I got upset about it all. But it was a really special moment because, you've just made me relive that dream, and that was what it was all about. And then I lived it in that moment.
Amazing.
Mm.
And we're just getting started on your career.
Yeah,
this is the early days.
It's it's cool because it's I guess because it was funny because it was just yesterday telling the kids about juggling the ball with the 500 times, because I'm always into it and trying to provide that inspiration and passion, and then I can see it. And the kid won it, Imran. I can see it. He's going to be a professional player. I can almost see it, and unless he doesn't get injured, and because in the last 22 years here in New Zealand, working with the young players, Chris Wood, who played at the Winners Academy, my academy, Suppreet Singh, who's now at Bayern Munich, and all kids who came through the academy who have made it. So you can, we can see the ones, who can go all the way. And the other cool thing about it today is that they've got the Wellington Phoenix professional club that they can aspire to, and it's a really good stepping stone to try and get to Europe, and that's the pathway that there is for the players, which is, in a way, it's a lot easier pathway than what it was for me, because you've got now established academies everywhere, there's established pathways, so many others have done it. When I was doing it, it wasn't really there. It wasn't so established. It was really quite tough. You didn't have the training opportunities, like the kids have today. But as long as you have that self-belief, and that, passion and drive, and then it is possible.
Understanding whether it's football, rugby, league, whatever sport, you need a lot of things to go right for you. Your skill set and a lot of what you just talked about is staying injury free, or going to a club that has the right coach that believes in you as well. All these different type of ingredients. When you're 19, I just want to talk about, so the football side's it's going awesome. You're living your dream on the pitch. Were there any difficulties at that stage around making the transition? Because traditionally a lot of our kids now, Pacific Island Māori kids especially, who are really talented athletes, they move over to Australia to try their hand at whatever sport that they're having over there for a bit of opportunity to become a professional athlete. One of the biggest things doesn't have anything to do with skill. It doesn't have anything to do with talent, size, body shape, or anything along those lines. It's just that adjustment to a different culture and a different environment. And this is only about a 2-3 hour plane trip away. You've moved to the other side of the planet, where they don't even speak the same language as you at that point. Were there adjustments and difficulties that you remember at that stage?
Definitely. There was a lot of difficulties for me in those early years because I wasn't a real professional. I didn't really know about professional football. I was learning, and I didn't listen. I was a bit, pig-headed.
Is this the Ngāti Porou side? we talked about the Swiss side.
Yeah, so, potentially, because I got into, troubles. I was chasing girls. I was getting, a bit off the path, the right track. And so it wasn't easy. The team then wasn't so successful. So, when you're succeeding, it's easier for the team to focus. Now you're not succeeding, the coach is having his battles, the coach is changing, you know, players are changing, things are changing, you're not getting the success, then I'm also, you know, not a good professional, I'm also losing it a bit as well, losing my way. So there was some really tough years until I met Lisa, and then Lisa from Perth, Australia. And then she sorted me out, and as she has done for the last 33 years. So I was lucky. It was a real blessing. It really worked well, and it was a miracle story as well about how I met Lisa. So the World Cup is every 4 years. So after the 82 came the next cycle of games for 85, and I came back to New Zealand to play some games for New Zealand, and I met Lisa in Auckland, and she was just a teenager with her parents on a business trip actually from Perth, Australia, and I got to meet her over a few hours in Auckland, and we got married 14 months later. So those sorts of marriages don't often happen today, those crazy quick marriages, and young, but it did for us. And she was 19, I was 23, and I just knew she was a drop-dead beautiful, gorgeous lady, and I just knew I wanted forever as my partner, and we've been married 33 years. Also, a defining moment was a month before we got married, I became a born-again Christian. So it was another really defining moment just to bring that I got settled. Because as you're talking about all the super young talent, and in those early years, it's not easy. It really is not easy. And all sorts of different factors, good and bad, and winning and losing can influence your pathway and the track that you're going down. So it's really important if you can have good, solid relationship, and that helps you, you know, keep that focus. So I was very lucky, because then, you know, Lisa comes on board. Within 2 years of that, I hit the big time in Germany. And it was, I got to say, it was Lisa, my wife, helped me with the focus. And I just, all I did, because then I was just totally, I was, you know, learning more of being a professional, just coming home, resting, had my partner, and just more natural focus, and then was able to succeed as an individual within the team. And then, you know, both was working, me as an individual within that team, it was both working well, so it was good. And then I got the big call and offer to go to Germany. So I got an offer to go to Germany, you know, while I was single, before I'd met Lisa, and but it just because of contract issues and things, my Swiss club wouldn't let me go. I could have potentially played 9 years in the Bundesliga in Germany instead of 6 years. But anyway, I had 6 good years, but you know, it could have been 9. But anyway, it worked out well. And then because almost every year in Germany we won something, and I was able to play in the most successful period in Werder Bremen's history. And Werder Bremen is still, since 1963, the Bundesliga being formed then, Bremen is still top 3 in the history of the Bundesliga, with achievements along with Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund. So within Werder Bremen's history, I was in the most successful period of 6 years, and it all just happened, and it was amazing. So. But again, you know, it was a combination of then, you know, the serious relationship with Lisa. At Werder Bremen, I met Otto Rehhagel, who was my coach, and he's one of the most famous German coaches of all time. He'd already was having an incredible success. Then we had even more success. And then when I left Werder Bremen, he had even then more success, winning European Championships with Greece. So, but I was, you know, it was a really amazing time at Werder Bremen in those 6 years. That was, you know, then just totally living the dream.
It's incredible. So again, all these just different dynamics. You meet Lisa, you found your partner, you found your faith, you found the right coach at the right team, and then all of this magic just happens within that period. What is it like being an international superstar? Pete, our producer here, who's a massive diehard fan, he just keeps on reinforcing, you don't understand how big Wynton Rufer was. He's like Jonah Lomu type big here in New Zealand. All these big international stars, that was Wynton Rufer when he was playing in the Bundesliga. What is that like?
Well, I guess in a way, there's, if I look at it from a Kiwi perspective, it's a shame that New Zealand didn't really get to see it like I saw it and lived it. Because then it would be, because all I'm thinking of is then the next generation. There'd have been just literally thousands of Kiwis who would have been inspired by what was happening. It's like right now with Chris Wood at Burnley. You know, he scored 10 goals in the Premier League. He scored, in the last 3 seasons at Burnley, he scored 30 goals in the Premier League. It's absolutely incredible. He was, 4 seasons ago, he scores 32 goals for Leeds United in the Championship. And it's a real shame that the Kiwi public is not really picking up and understanding what he is going through. They don't give it enough media attention. But yeah, it was same for me when I was playing, because he definitely deserves more. And I'm thinking as well, Chris won't be worried about the personal accolades, as I wasn't either, because you're there living the dream. But it's the thousands of other Kiwis that we could be inspiring more with his story. I think that's a shame that we're missing out on. So, and as well for me back then and living the dream, you know, it was in a way it was quite cool to come to New Zealand. I got peace.
Nobody's bothering you.
No one really knew me. It was actually really quite cool, because in Germany, every man and his dog wants to talk to you, and they weren't so it would have been worse in Turkey or maybe Argentina or Italy. They'd just be hassling you like crazy. Germany was not bad because they're a bit more standoffish. Sure. So that was good in that regard, but they still, you know, and plus Bremen wasn't one of those fanatical football cities like Munich, Dortmund, you know, Frankfurt. Some of them are just, they're really fanatical cities. Even though Bremen's 10th biggest city in Germany, it's in northern Germany. They're a bit more reserved and calm. So that was also a plus, because you get a lot of the, you know, I mean, I enjoyed it. You know, you're a bit of a hero and that, and I sort of used it for my advantage, and a bit of trash talk and a bit of fun and stuff, you know. But you know, but really light-hearted, and but in a way I was quite lucky, because it was far more relaxed. And then as well, coming back to New Zealand, it was real good, because no one really sort of knew me, and they don't really bother you. So
yeah, unfortunately, I don't think Stephen Adams has that same luxury.
Yeah.
He's coming around. He's 7'2". He kind of stands out a little bit when he comes back to Aotearoa. But I want to touch on, you said you absolutely live in the dream when you go to the Bundesliga. You're winning titles. You're playing an incredible level of football, and everything's all working, and you're at the peak of your powers. So much so, your mate Franz Beckenbauer, who was coaching the German team for the World Cup in 1990, said that if he had his way, you would be the first person picked on that German squad. That, again, probably shows a level about how great, not good, not really good, how great of a player you were at that point. Yeah,
well, I was just, you know, when you're winning, you know, with your team in the Bundesliga, so the national coach of Germany, obviously he's looking to see the, you know, the other strikers, and often, you know, there's other good foreigners that are in the league, and I was one of the top foreign players in the league, and of course, so then, you know, he comes out with the comment, and of course when he makes a comment like that, you know, it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek comment, but of course when it comes from him, it's been never forgotten, you know, and then it's always talked about, and probably it would have happened if I was German, you know, probably would have picked me, I guess, you know, but it's just, you know, well, it's a nice story. I think a real cool story is I showed quite a lot of emotion in my first goal in Europe and in this interview, but I ended up scoring 30 goals in Europe in 45 games. So it is actually a really good striking rate, and so that's quite a good one. And so for Chris, even though he's an unbelievable goal scorer,
not quite, mate, not quite.
Good luck to try and get that one. But that one's not bad, you know, to score, you know, in European Cup football, score 30 goals in 45 games. It's actually not bad. So today it's actually quite easy to score the 30 goals because they have the Champions League. If you're in a Champions League team. But if you look at the ratios, the quotes, I'm actually right up there. Wow. So that's quite cool, you know, because you're not in number of goals, because so many games,
sure,
they're all scoring 100 goals now, but they're playing in, I don't know, 200 games or whatever games it is, and so but the ratio is quite cool. So
quality, not quantity.
So
one other cool thing, being named Oceania Player of the Century. How did that make you feel, to be acknowledged in that way?
Well, I'd been, then every year I was, you know, getting these titles as Oceania Player of the Year. And so then when it came, and then I was actually, I think I was Oceania Player of the Decade. So I was a guess who was going to be in the running, because then there's another 10 decades, or 9, and then so I guess that I actually, because someone told me this a few years ago. They said, Wynton, did you know? Look at the top 20 list. There's no other New Zealanders, and the one New Zealander is at number 1.
He's the guy who won.
And I thought, oh yeah, that's cool, and it was. So that's quite cool. That in the top 20 list, there's only one New Zealander, and he's at number 1. Nice. So that's pretty cool.
That is cool. So you've reached this pinnacle point where it's put you in elite status within the game, and that transfers off the park as well, when you're off the pitch as well, when you're your association with FIFA. And an ambassador against racism. That's interesting. How did that all come about, and the involvement there for your role within that capacity?
It's, again, the power of football, and to be fair, Sepp Blatter, who was became quite a controversial president of FIFA, but that's another story. And you know, he started these other committees at FIFA to just try and bring positive influence in the game, and so that was one of them. And it was good what he was trying to do. And he also was the one who formed the football committee that included Pelé and Platini and Beckenbauer and Wynton Rufer. And, you know, Michel Platini became the president at UEFA. And so they were, you know, there were really positive changes that he was trying to bring into the game. And of course, sadly, there's also a lot of corruption there with money and things. But I truly believe that Sepp Blatter, and I got to know him very well, he was trying to do things for the good. But there's a lot of, you know, but anyway, that's another story. But anyway, so back to the ambassadors for racism, and it was just a really good thing that they still need to work on, because still today it's the fans. They're some stupid fans, and then they get a bit carried away, and they know how to hurt you, you know, to say ruthless things, and the tongue is a lot of power in the tongue, and it's sadly still happening today. I don't necessarily think it's real racism as such. I think it's more that we know what we can say to those different people to really hurt them. You know what you can say, so it still exists in the stadiums today with the black athletes and the crowds, and calling out, you know, those horrible names, and But as I said, I think it's more because it's just, see, there's so much rivalry in the football. I'm not trying to cover over racism. It exists. But it, as well, I reckon half of it as well is just ruthless fans just putting a knife in. They know how to annoy you and they want to win the game. So it's a combination. It's also racism, but it's also just winning.
So that's one of the biggest issues within football around that. It's not so much within the clubs of how like other players, like African players, are treated or anything like that. It's more so the interaction between the fans and what's happening out on the pitch.
That's what I believe, yes.
Interesting. The one thing I really want to spend a little bit of time on is the Winners Football Academy. And it goes back to, you know, how emotional you got about where you come from, and now you can see it in the kids that right now that are still at that infant age, starting out their football career. But man, you've had some massive successes over the 22 years that you've been running this program. Yeah,
no, it's been pretty cool for sure, because Michael Fitzgerald was the first player, and he was just a local Auckland lad, Samoan mother, Pākehā father, and been a professional now 10 years in the J League in Japan, you know, earning $500,000 US per year. And you know, he was the first, and then as well Chris Wood, who came through Winners, and he's, you know, amazing what he's doing, scoring all those goals at Burnley. And the latest one, real cool story, is Satpreet Singh at Bayern Munich, who played as well, trained about 8 years at Winners Academy in Auckland, and awesome stories. And so many players have played as well with the New Zealand under-17s, under-20s. So, you know, with the All Whites, at the Wellington Phoenix, you know, Stefan Marinovic, Louis Fenton, Te Rewhai Hudson-Wihongi, Alex Rufer. So, cool stories, all guys that, you know, kicked the ball in the Winners Academy. So, yeah, also good stories.
What's your main motivator behind that? You could easily do a whole bunch of other things, you know, with the status and with everything that you've accumulated over your career, yet you're so invested in developing these young players.
Yeah, no, I guess you saw it in I guess my reaction to the goal against Benfica in this interview. I'm really passionate about just being involved with the game, and really to be overseas where I could really be earning millions of dollars still in football. I sacrificed all that, and it's been tough. It's, you know, financially probably disastrous, being, you know, doing what I've done in New Zealand. But at the end of the day, I'm at least living true to my passion and ideals, and so that's a good thing. And even you guys bringing it out of me. I just start crying here on TV. I guess it shows some, you know, that I'm in the right place, I think. So it's good. It's good. And then, and look, I'll be honest. I'll be 85, and I'll be walking around the fields, picking up cones, just talking to some kids, trying to, you know, help them be on the right pathway. So I'll be doing it until I can't walk anymore. You know, I know I'll be there, because I love it. Just being outside. We're lucky here in New Zealand. Beautiful outdoors, nature, magic country, and so as long as I can walk, I'll be there on the fields, just doing my little bit. I'd rather be smacking the ball in the, you know, they're putting that header in against Benfica in front of 32,000. But at the end of the day, I did live the dream to a certain extent, and then so the next best thing is walking on the grass, putting it, you know, picking up a few cones or putting out a few cones, and then just, you know, seeing the kids kick a ball.
And helping them get to that point as well. I do want to ask you in regards to our Māori Pacific Island kids here in Aotearoa, is that our kids so, I don't know if this is the right word, naturally gifted. They can pick up a bat, they can pick up a ball, they can run, they can do everything.
I have been telling it for 22 years. So even New Zealand football are not taking advantage of the incredible Māori talent, and also the iwis. And here within New Zealand, they got all this payout money. We're not, for me, not taking advantage of the opportunity for our whānau with football. And as you say, I'm part of that incredible natural talent.
Yeah, here we are. There's
and
Māori guy who's the best ever.
So many amazing Māori talent. Te Arawhai, Hudson Wihongi by the Wellington Phoenix, great Māori kid. But there's hundreds more of them. And then if we could just, and as I said, from the day I turned up here in New Zealand to try and work with the youth, I had specific ideas for programs to inspire the Māori kids, but same, hasn't been able to happen.
What's the main barriers to that? Is it the infrastructure of how things are run?
No, it's not money, because the money's there, and it's the leadership and the people who have the belief or don't have the belief, who can't see it. It's, you know, those visionary leaders. But shame, real shame. Another missed opportunity for me.
Can it be turned?
For sure, definitely.
It is, because it's remarkable when you think about seeing it firsthand what kids to do to try and get an NRL contract or to try and get a Super Rugby contract. The amount of contracts that are out there in regards to volume of them and what they're worth in football compared to every sport combined, it's not even close.
Yeah, that's it. That's why I'm saying. That's why. It's a no-brainer for me, and just not taken advantage of.
Aspirations and hopes. We'll try and let you get out of here, otherwise I'll keep you here all day just to talk about, again, real fascinating. But just over a year ago, January 5, we talk about monumental moments in your life. This one on the negative side, you have a heart attack. I'm looking at you, you look fit. You know,
no, well, look, you know, it is say negative that you have a heart attack and you almost die, but to be honest, there's been far more positive outcomes in this whole experience for me with the heart attack on you know, a year ago. So it might sound crazy, but truly I'm glad it happened. Wow. And it's been really positive. And so I've got a few more years in me.
And your health and your well-being now?
Yeah, well, I had quite good health before, but I've obviously got even better health and more better awareness. With the 2 stents in me, the channels are clear. So, you know, long may that rain.
So now, through that, with all the experience, all the things that you've invested your time in, and now a healthier and stronger Wynton Rufer, over the next little bit, where are you going to be pouring your energy into?
Now, well, now that I've been here with you guys and we're talking about this Indigenous, you know, series that you've been doing, you know, I would love to be able to try and find with you guys someone that we could then inspire to, you know, support you know, project specific to Māori and Pacific Islanders.
Awesome. That is exactly what this entire thing is about. We're going around the world speaking with inspired Indigenous leaders in every different field, and the hope is for it to be aspirational and to inspire the next ones coming through or the next ones watching. So, done.
Good.
Wynton Rufer, e te rangatira, e mihi anō ki a koe. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your passions, and again, understanding that the importance of your influence and what you can do has already had, it has such a massive positive effect on our people.
Brilliant.